What's up, everybody? It's your favorite old timer's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Transformers Studio Series Cup. This is 2 out of the 3 figures that were loaned to me from Chris Pinkerton, if you're nasty, of Crashbox Custom, so you should definitely check out. Co-host of Nerd Rage Radio. Took a gamble on some of these. I don't think he was overly enthused. I looked at the Hot Rod. I thought it was good. I think it's where Hasbro should be operating. I don't think it's anything spectacular. I think it's on par with what they're doing with a lot of their other lines, and that's kind of the target they should be aiming for. That being said, I've heard that these aren't as good, but I'll be the judge of that for the sake of this review anyway. But in order to judge it, we need to look at accessories. So he comes with his signature gun, sculpted well enough, and it's just of this like lighter green styled plastic. He'll hold it just fine in a 5mm port hand. That'll peg into the side of the vehicle. He comes with his little Bobby Mini Bond dispenser, and you get the green paint on there, which is interesting because there's no green of this shade on the figure, so it means they had to, like, you know, crack another can, so to speak, which you rarely see on an accessory, so it was kind of refreshing to see it here. And he'll hold that just fine as well in the same fashion. That too will peg into the side of the vehicle and look completely ridiculous. Gimmicks wise, you can break him into a bunch of pieces so that he can be repaired by Hot Rod. And let's talk about the figure. So let's start straight away with the head sculpt. I don't care for it one bit. I don't like it. I don't think it looks much like Cup. It looks like some sort of rendition of him. But I don't think they did as accurate a job with him as they did with Hot Rod, just in regard to that. However, it is painted. The face is painted, and then the lighter green is painted on, and that looks good. Articulation-wise, it's a ball peg. You get a little bit down. You get a little bit up. You get a swivel. You get some light piping that doesn't work. And you get a little bit of confused Cup look. Alright, moving on. I don't like these shallow tabs here. My tabs are always coming out as I am manipulating them, which hasn't been a ton, but every time I go to, this one specifically comes out. This one stays pretty stuck in. This one, not so much. The shoulders are basically universal joints. They're disc hinges, but they act like universals. So you can get all the way up like Remy and Fat Joe, and you can get all the way around. No problem. Bicep swivel. Single hinge knee that breaks the sculpt to hell, but gets you a great range, so I think that's okay, especially at the price point. You get the light green paint on there as well, and the orange paint. The orange paint looks pretty good. And you do not get a wrist swivel. What a bummer. Same for the other side. Came out again. That might have to do with this joint. This joint might be a little tight on this side. And like a tolerance a bit better on this side, or that might be. Hard to say. I do like the deco on the chest. I think it fits the line well. The painted underneath with the translucent on top. The light gray, green painted on there with the tampoed Autobot symbol and a waist swivel that's too tight. You get gray paint here and orange paint, and you get disc hinges for hips as well, but they work fine. Get you out to the side for the full Van Damme, forward and back for the full Monty with a thigh swivel, single hinge knee, sculpted detail in the legs, but no paint. We get the Autobot symbol down there and a couple little paint accents, which I think is ultimately fine. Single hinge knee is a soft ratchet that this one doesn't even grab. This one does. And get you about 90 degrees. I say let's give it to him. You get a toe tilt, which acts as an ankle tilt. Not quite the same, but I think it works. And then we get an ankle rocker that works really well. And then there he is from the back. And that's him in a nutshell. Size comparison wise, there he is next to Hot Rod, and I simply just don't think he looks as good. Size comparison wise, he fits in just fine, but just aesthetically, he just doesn't look like he's of the same caliber. Materials wise is on par. Paint deco wise and breakup and all that stuff, it's on par. Articulation is on par. Just aesthetically speaking, not the case. Let's get him transformed. So turn the head around, pop the sides off. Chances are one of them will want to come out already. Bring this down and unfurl it. You want to bring these pieces out. Then you want to drop this back and bring this part, you want to collapse that as far as you can, and bring this part over top and tab it in, and that will tuck the head away, so to speak. Then you have to kind of like bring out this whole section that's attached. You can see it, it comes out, and then slide it around. Oh, I just did it backward, didn't I? Let me see if I can. Until it stops, and when it naturally stops, that means you have it. We can bring the legs down, and stuff might come undone, like Duran Duran. But this has got to go inside of this little cavity and tab in there. So let's see what we got. There's one. Let's just work from here, shall we? I thought I broke it for a second. Dude, how do I get myself into these pickles? You know what I mean? Good grief. Okay. And tie that back in. Let's see. I'm just gonna have to cheat it now. Oh, because it's tight. Because that joint is tight. It's so interesting. There were some couple build issues that I found with Hot Rod too, which I just don't, necessarily expect. I expect a ton of different issues, but not necessarily build issues. So there we go. All right, then untab the knee, and you kind of just shift it a bit, and then it pegs back in, so it looks like he just got off a horse. So same thing, shift it a bit, just got off a horse. What did I get? Oh, sweet. I just got a notification of a delivery, and it's something I wanted. All right, so get this piece ready here. You can tuck your toes in. Get this piece ready here. And basically this comes up. This tucks underneath the fender. All of this stuff starts to fill in these kind of dedicated spaces here. And this piece here that I'm trying to get underneath this fender is on a slider. But that's what you're looking for. We'll go ahead and report. Yeah, we'll report it. Report it to HR, you know what I mean? 'Tis the season, I guess. It's a new day out there. Repeat that for the other side. And just kind of finagle it in there. And it'll go. The material's a little gummier, than I would prefer, but it'll go. Okay, and I'll clean this up, obviously, at the end. But then you bring these little flaps around, you form the bed, and they tab in back into the lower leg and interlock with each other. And lastly, the hands come back and grab a hold of some pegs that are sitting at the bottom of the bed. And that's it. I'll clean them up. We'll take a look at them. And there it is. And, ultimately, fine. It does what it's supposed to do. I'm not sure if this is better than the old Chug one. My kid used to have that one. I always thought that one was pretty cool. But I don't know. Proportionate-wise, it still seems off. The Hot Rod one seems off. This one seems off. The wheels seem cheap, whereas the Hot Rod wheels seemed a little bit more finished. Otherwise, I think it's pretty much fine. Rolls like a champ, so no issues there. I still like the same deco stuff that was on in the robot mode that worked for me. Still works for me here in vehicle mode. And there it is with Tiger Tracks. Final thoughts wise, let's start with the negatives. Tolerance issues, build issues, stuff that I'm still not used to kind of seeing with Hasbro stuff. Like, usually it's a materials issue and paint issues and sculpt issues perhaps and that kind of stuff. This kind of stuff has been taking a different approach where some of the things that I feel like they kind of have lacked on in the past, they kind of clean up and then they miss the boat on whole new things. But one of those new things, in my opinion, would be the build, the tolerances, stuff like those shoulders, not tabbing in properly in robot mode, plus having all sorts of problems in transformation, or in the transformation process, I suppose. And that's my main issue. My second issue is definitely a subjective one, but it's one nonetheless, and that is, I don't think it looks good. I don't think his face looks good. I don't think the proportions look good. I don't like the way that the shoulders sit. I just don't think it's a good looking figure. So that for me is a huge issue because ultimately my main concern is that stuff looks good. And I think the hot rod does look good. I don't think that this guy looks as good. Positives wise though, I have to point out what I think are the big takeaways from this guy. For me anyway. And perhaps with the studio line El Total, but too soon to say. The engineering process of the transformation is more sophisticated. As a result, not only is it more interesting, but it also has more articulation than what I'm used to with Hasbro figures. Now in the same breath, they'll chop off their nose to spite their face and give you an ankle rocker, but take away a wrist swivel. So it's not all puppy dogs and rainbows, but I do acknowledge the growth. I do acknowledge the effort. Other than that, it was kind of cool to have the Energonics dispenser as an accessory. I don't think that, has anybody done that before in the past? I'm not entirely sure. Either way, kind of a clever accessory to give. And that's about all I got to say about this. I think I prefer the older one over this. The one from like the early 2000 teens or whatever. But that's me. Interesting nonetheless. Take a look at the, I definitely prefer the hot rod over this, but not by a landslide, just by a bit. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.